NRA TV with Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Hot Mike with Bill Whittle. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. And later on in the show today, we're going to have our friend Kurt Schlichter join us. And as we just connected a few moments ago on Skype getting ready for the program, he said it's a pretty crummy day, isn't it? He didn't say crummy. And it is. It's a crummy day. Let's just get started. We're going to be talking, needless to say, about the shooting in Virginia today. So for those of you who may not have heard the basics, it's pretty simple, really. A man named James Thomas Hodgkinson appeared at a baseball game, and at that baseball game there were members of Congress from the Republican Party who were practicing for a charity event. They were going to play the Democrats to raise some money. And the man in question stopped at the edge of the baseball field and asked somebody whether those were Republicans or Democrats. And the answer was, those are Republicans. And so he started to open fire. He hit Representative Steve Scalise in the hip. 5 others were wounded, including the 2 police officers who basically put a stop to this rampage on the part of this lunatic. They were all expected to survive. I've heard lately that Representative Scalise has taken maybe a turn for the worse. We'll find out more about that as the day progresses. Needless to say, our prayers and hopes are with all of these people. So, what do we make out of what is clearly and unequivocally a targeted assassination of Republicans? It's what it is. You can describe it any other way you want to, but the one thing I think the left will not be able to get away with this time is calling it workplace violence or a workplace incident. A man who's known to have extremely progressive views simply decided that he was going to go out and kill Republicans. So the big question for us today that we're going to be talking about on this show is whether or not the pop culture, whether or not the news media, whether or not anyone or anyone else is responsible for an action this vile. In other words, the horrific, toxic environment of the country that has been spewed almost completely by the left here, is it in fact responsible for this kind of thing, and should they be held accountable? Let's talk a little bit about this guy. I'm not going to mention his name because once is enough. I just had to identify him. I have a policy of never saying the names of these mass murderers. Anytime I have a chance to avoid saying their names, I will. We know he's a Bernie Sanders supporter. He has a big Bernie banner on his Facebook page. I think we have a picture of him out on a picket line someplace where he's calling for the same kind of collectivist socialist stuff that Bernie Sanders is so much well known for. He also has a number of Facebook groups that he's a part of. And this is the point I'd really like to make. So here's the names of some of the groups that apparently this guy was a member of on Facebook. One is The Road to Hell is Paved with Republicans. Fair enough. Donald Trump is not my president. You have a right to say that. President Bernie Sanders, go ahead and dream all you want to, pal. Illinois Burners United to Resist Trump. That's your constitutional right. Boycott the Republican Party. Again, you've got that right to free speech. Expose Republican fraud. Believe it or not, I'd like you to expose Republican fraud as much as I'd like the news media to expose Democratic fraud. But one of them is called Terminate the Republican Party. And that's the one I'm interested in. Terminate the Republican Party. At what point does the freedom of speech that we all have a Second Amendment to protect, at what point does that become sedition? At what point does it become incitement to murder? It's getting closer to a line that I never thought we'd really reach in America, but we certainly have reached it. The election of Donald Trump and all of the events from the election, the night of the election onward, have been absolutely astonishing in their lawlessness, their disregard for, in fact, their contempt for democracy. The entire idea that these people's apple cart was upset by the will of the American people is just something they apparently are not ever going to get over, like 4-year-olds having a temper tantrum on the floor at Walmart because they didn't get their toy. And it's not just obviously this guy. We have or terminate the Republican Party. You may remember Kathy Griffith, who we've been speaking about for most of the last week or two. She thought it would be great art to hold up the decapitated head of the president dripping blood. That's part of this overall general atmosphere that's being created. And Kathy Griffith is not the only celebrity. There's an enormous list of celebrities who have said openly. Robert De Niro says, I'd like to punch him in the face. Madonna says, I've often thought about blowing up the White House. If there was a Facebook page that said terminate black Americans or a Facebook page that said terminate homosexuals, would it be tolerated? I suspect it probably wouldn't and shouldn't be. So the atmosphere is becoming, it's past tense, it's past divisive. It's now becoming violent. It's now becoming dangerous. So to help us talk about this is one of the people I respect most in this line of work. He's an author, he's a lawyer, he's a commentator, and he's a military veteran and certainly a friend of the NRA. Our buddy Kurt Schlichter is back. Kurt, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing all right considering the situation today, Kurt.
Exactly.
I wanted to have you be the guest on this show because I have already done a segment or two at BillWhittle.com on the article you wrote just a few weeks ago, where you basically said the left isn't going to like it when everybody starts playing by the rules that they've created. We're going to get into the physical violence aspect of it in a minute, but just give us an outline about it rhetorically in terms of the points you were trying to make.
Look, I'm a little biased, having spent time overseas in a country that was somewhat stable and then degenerated into violence and lost the rule of law. I walked through the ruined villages. I saw the impact on people in Kosovo, and it worries me that people here, Bill, seem so cavalier about what we have, as if they can knock all the supports and foundations out and expect the structure to still stand. Specifically, There are a lot of people who seem to think that they can change the basic rules we operate under and everyone else will remain static. That when they change the rules for themselves, it doesn't change the rules for everybody. That's such a grave error. Are we going to normalize political violence? Because this guy thought it was normalized. This guy watched, celebrities carry heads around. The president figuratively assassinated in front of clapping New Yorkers in a
standing ovation.
A standing ovation, a play that was funded by CNN's parent company. And not to interrupt you, sorry to interrupt you, and funded by us as well. Yeah, that's right. Is that what you want? Yeah. So by the way, the production of Julius Caesar, where Donald Trump gets stabbed to death, is paid for by your tax dollars at work. I'm sure that's something to make you very, very happy. Parenthetically, by the way, liberals, progressives, if it turns out that you want to weaponize the National Endowments for the Arts and weaponize it against half the country, then I say that we need to eliminate this particular organization that never really should have been there in the first place, certainly without any constitutional authority on the federal level. Kurt, here's the problem I see. This is the problem that I see. I don't buy this whole hate speech thing. I've always thought that hate speech was something that basically people who didn't like what you were saying accused you of. I don't buy the idea that kind of speech is dangerous. I don't buy the idea that any kind of speech is dangerous, because if I genuinely believed that what I said or what somebody else said could influence somebody to go out and murder somebody, you and me and everybody else in this country would have to limit our language to whatever is not going to upset the loosest screw in the entire nation of 320 million people. So where do we draw the line, Kurt, in terms of what is acceptable criticism, what is bad taste criticism, what is disgusting criticism? Is there a line that you can cross where it now becomes criminal criticism? Well, as far as legally, we're not even close to that here. This guy, the kind of idiotic rhetoric that we've seen out there is not anywhere near illegal or unlawful, nor should it be. However,
I agree.
But I'm not really talking about specific speech, specific words. I'm talking about more of an attitude towards the norms and rules and customs that govern our political life. And they manifest in, stupid and obnoxious speech. But that's not the entirety of it. the fact that you don't honor these rules and norms, that we had a president who thought he was going to rule by pen and phone when the people's representatives wouldn't go along with him. They all work together in a very, very dangerous way to dehumanize normal Americans, to say that they have no value, and to make it socially acceptable to hate your fellow Americans. And I don't want to get into this. Oh, go on. Go
ahead. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say it's the lag.
See, this is what happens.
I'll just take it from here. Yeah, it's terrible. I'll just take it. I just want to thank you. I just want to add something to this. We've seen bad taste commentary since there's been in America. I mean, that goes back all the way, and disgusting commentary and over-the-top commentary and so on. What I think is unusual about what we're seeing lately is the collaboration, not only of the mainstream news media, but of one of the two political parties in America. The Democratic Party is behind a lot of this stuff. We find out that Hillary Clinton's campaign, for example, sent people to violently disrupt Trump's rallies. We find that the president of the United States has basically told the Justice Department to not prosecute cases against Black Lives Matter when they're rioting in the streets and burning things down. I have never seen the government back this kind of rhetoric, this kind of lawlessness, this kind of disgraceful disregard for the rules of society that you just talked about so succinctly.
No, you're absolutely right. All of this isn't just about, Kathy Griffin trying to rise above the cesspool of obscurity in which she dwells. It's not a bunch of squeeing liberals doing the little seal clap at the fake assassination, feeling edgy. It's more than that. Those are part and parcel of it, but they're not the entire thing, and maybe not even the most important part. What we're seeing is half of America completely dehumanizing and invalidating the other half. You saw it during the election fallout, where, the coastal elites basically looked at it and said, who are these people to dare speak for themselves and to dare make their preferences known? When you go down that road, it's a very, very ugly destination. It
is. And when we come back after the break, we're going to continue with our friend Kurt Schlichter, and we're going to talk about this idea of dehumanization and demonization and how we're not talking about rhetoric anymore. When we come back, we're going to be talking about actual physical violence being directed against a specific set of Americans, and that set of Americans includes Kurt and me and those of you watching. This is Hot Mike. I'm Bill Whittle. We'll be back right after this.